In today's episode, we examine NASA's emerging trajectory for the first time. The massive orbital station is preparing for scientific operations, and Axiom is deploying artificial intelligence technology into space. Following months of eager waiting, NASA is finally on the verge of welcoming a new administrator. This individual will be vastly different from his predecessor. He's a wealthy business magnate and military jet pilot who became a commercial space traveler and conducted extravehicular activities. He also maintains a close personal relationship with Elon Musk. So what transpired when Jared Isaacman traveled to the nation's capital? Politics dominated the proceedings. The prospective NASA administrator's Senate confirmation proceeding extended for approximately 2.5 hours, with the majority of time focused on examining his intimate connections with Mr. Musk, which we'll address shortly. But initially, let's proceed directly to the most significant matters. Isaacman faced questioning from Texas Senator Ted Cruz. His state has substantial investments in the aerospace industry, and consequently, Cruz has been a long-standing advocate for NASA's space exploration programs. Currently, Mr. Cruz harbors certain apprehensions regarding the fate of those programs under Isaacman's leadership. Cruz declared to the Senate, "We must stay the course," referring to the Artemis lunar program, cautioning, "An extreme shift in priorities at this stage would almost certainly mean a red moon, ceding ground to China for generations to come." Responding to this, Isaacman assured senators of both lunar and Martian objectives, stating, "We will prioritize sending American astronauts to Mars. Along the way, we will inevitably have the capabilities to return to the moon." His reasoning essentially posits that this isn't a binary choice. It's not a matter of selecting either the moon or Mars because we're examining very comparable technologies required for both expeditions. We're deploying personnel to a hostile environment with reduced gravity with the objective to perform scientific research and create a lasting human presence. The primary distinction lies in the distance those individuals will be required to traverse and the length of their mission. Isaacman stated, quote, "We could be paralleling these efforts and doing the near impossible." When Cruz presented a visual aid to illustrate his argument, it depicted two potential outcomes, an American lunar presence or a Chinese lunar presence, with the heading, "What will 2030 look like?" Isaacman reaffirmed his dedication to executing the current Artemis strategy to place American astronauts on the moon within this decade, and that entails utilizing the current SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft. Isaacman declared, "This is the current plan. I do believe it is the best and fastest way to get there." However, he also included a qualification many had anticipated hearing. He added, "I don't think it's the long-term way to get to and from the moon and Mars with great frequency, but this is the plan we have now." Jared faced unique scrutiny on this matter because the crew of the Artemis II mission happened to be present at the confirmation hearing, and Isaacman recognized them by saying, "We've got to get this crew around the moon and the following crew to land on the moon. And regarding the subject of commanding formidable vessels, what if I informed you there's a method to transport that fantasy from space directly into the ocean with a blazing ghost captain steering the helm?" This video is brought to you by World of Warships, the free-to-play naval warfare game where you can command historically authentic warships and now not so historically authentic undead vessels as well. Because indeed, the Headless Horseman has officially entered the game. He's introducing his own cursed commander and a spectral ship skin that illuminates as if it's fueled by pure nightmare energy. Honestly, it's arguably the most metal addition ever implemented in a naval simulation. If you're new to the game, access the link positioned at the top of the description and utilize the invite code HEADLESS to receive 7 days of premium time, 1.5 million credits, 500 doubloons. The spooky Headless Horseman himself, that cursed ship skin that functions on any ship, and a complimentary ship of your selection once you've finished 15 battles. Yes, it's an entire Haunted Fleet starter package. And listen, World of Warships is genuinely enjoyable. The vessels are incredibly detailed. The battles are filled with strategic elements, and the game releases new missions and updates weekly. It's an excellent justification to shout broadside at your monitor like a naval enthusiast. So, if you've ever contemplated, "I'd like to dominate the ocean with the assistance of a mythological undead maniac," this is your opportunity. Click the link in the description, use code HEADLESS, and proceed to transform some enemy vessels into haunted scrap metal. Now, You may or may not have detected some subtle messages that Jared may or may not have been conveying through his responses. And if such a message existed, it would indicate that he's prepared to accept the existing Artemis strategy as a safeguard against the immediate danger of a Chinese lunar landing. But beyond that, he's ready to synchronize his priorities with Elon Musk and the Mars Settlement Initiative, which would receive substantial support from the SpaceX Starship vehicle. But SpaceX is going to require considerable assistance with the logistics, and NASA will be available to deliver. But there exists another significant issue, the International Space Station. Does Jared share Musk's perspective on the future of the ISS? Because if so, that would signify imminent destruction of the only non-Chinese space station in operation. Musk has publicly declared that he believes the ISS possesses no value and should be deorbited at the earliest opportunity. This is where Isaac Mann definitively diverged from Elon. He informed the Senate, "I am familiar with Mr. Musk's remarks on that. I would like to understand his rationale behind that." And then he articulated a very unambiguous statement of his own position, saying, "I do not believe we should deorbit it now. I think we need to make the most use of the space station while we have it and figure out what we can accomplish in the unique environment of microgravity." Considerable attention was given to this notion that Isaac Mann could be nothing more than an Elon Musk representative, installed in authority over the U.S. space program. In a more explicit response regarding where his loyalties reside, Isaac Mann informed the Senate, quote, "I want to be absolutely clear. My loyalty is to this nation, the space agency, and their world-changing mission. SpaceX is a contractor. NASA is the customer. They work for us, not the other way around." So, in theory, Isaac Mann is expressing all the appropriate sentiments. And throughout the space community, he's broadly regarded as a strong candidate to guide the next chapter at NASA. But there's still a considerably substantial question remaining about what kind of space program he'll inherit. Isaac Mann might have authority over the direction of the agency, but one thing that he doesn't control is the funding. And this might be a very significant problem in the very near future. We have preliminary and unverified reports that President Trump intends to implement a substantial reduction to NASA's operational budget. The thing about this proposal, if accurate, is that it would be a focused reduction, and the focus is science. Approximately 50% of the dedicated science funding for NASA would disappear, resulting in some quite devastating consequences. Mars sample return would be terminated. The long-suffering Da Vinci mission to Venus would be eliminated permanently. NASA's next-generation space telescope, the Nancy Grace Roman, which is already constructed, would be placed on an indefinite hold. This would also necessitate the closure of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. And those are merely the headline-capturing outcomes. The comprehensive effect of this budget on the fields of astrophysics and planetary science would be extensive. Now, we're also searching for an explanation why. It's not as if Donald Trump doesn't care about space. In fact, he appears to be passionate about space. There wouldn't even be an Artemis program without Trump. He established the Space Force. He's already announced his intention to construct a massive network of missile defense satellites. And he stated in his inauguration speech that he wants to place Americans on the planet Mars. The science material, however, the truly geeky, nerdy category of activity that doesn't receive as much attention. And Jared Isaac Mann is not dissimilar in his own priorities. He is an enormous enthusiast of human space exploration. He's invested his resources and his own physical safety on the line to advance the development of commercial spaceflight programs with SpaceX. But he is not a scientist. And then, naturally, there's Elon Musk. Very passionate about traveling to Mars, constructing rockets, colonization, deeply engaged in the engineering aspects of things, but also not a science specialist. So if we were to deduce what was occurring, here we're probably observing a redirection, a reprioritization of NASA away from the theoretical and into the practical. The winds of transformation are blowing powerfully, so stay tuned for that. Now, for those who do care about science, we're returning to the story of the vast Haven 1 space station. This is rapidly becoming America's next best opportunity at a functional outpost in low Earth orbit. Haven 1 is not particularly large or elaborate, which is probably the reason why it's advancing so rapidly, and that's led into the first round of customer payloads that will be aboard the space station when it launches to space as early as next year. There's the Japan Manned Space Systems Corporation, which has facilitated research on Japan's Kibo module on the ISS. They'll deliver a multi-purpose payload facility for microgravity research on Haven 1. Interstellar Lab is a French enterprise that will supply an advanced life sciences research facility called Eden 1.0 that will be utilized for experiments such as plant cultivation. ExoBiosphere is headquartered in Luxembourg and will deploy a biotechnology payload to conduct pharmaceutical and healthcare experiments. These new announcements accompany two previously disclosed science payloads for Haven 1. There's Redwire Space, which will supply its advanced space experiment processor and pillbox pharmaceutical experiment platforms, both of which have previously been utilized on the ISS, and Yuri, a European space biotech company, will supply its Science Taxi Incubator and Centrifuge Experiments package for the Haven 1 laboratory. Haven 1 can accommodate 10 mid-deck lockers for research payloads. Most of those have now been purchased by those partners or are being reserved by VAST for use by crews that will visit the space station. Those lockers are the same standard as on the ISS, but with slightly different aesthetics. On Haven 1, the lockers will be positioned behind wood paneling on one end of the module that opens up to access the payloads. The concept is that when they aren't utilizing the payloads, the crew can close it and have a more calming experience, similar to a work-life boundary in space. Haven 1 will be visited by 4 short-duration crew missions, which VAST will leverage to acquire experience for its larger Haven 2 station, which is proposed for development under NASA's Commercial Low Earth Orbit Destinations program. Meanwhile, Axiom is deploying AI supercomputers into space. The commercial enterprise will launch 2 orbiting data center nodes into low Earth orbit by the conclusion of this year. This is the first step in the development of off-planet computing infrastructure. The pioneering satellites will be utilized to process data from Earth-observing satellites, employing complex AI and machine learning algorithms to accelerate the delivery of valuable insights to users on the ground. Currently, satellites need to transmit their images to Earth for processing, which introduces delays, bypassing the need to downlink data to ground stations distributed all around the world. Will also reduce security concerns such as possible interception of data by adversary actors. Although the first orbiting data centers will exclusively process data collected in space, some technologists believe that power-hungry computing infrastructure would perform better in space, where solar power is constant and cooling is effortless.